Hello, I'm Tom Hood, reporting from Annapolis on the day after Sine Die, April the 13th. I'm in my new capacity now as a volunteer chair of the Maryland Association of CPAs Legislative Executive Committee, which we will be using from now on and we've got a great group of volunteers that'll be helping us as we move into this future. I am the former CEO of the Maryland Association of CPAs. Now I'm the EVP of Business Growth and Engagement for the AICPA and SEMA. But I want to report on our legislative agenda for the past 90 days. As you know, one of the major things we've been doing since our inception in 1901 as the Maryland Association of CPAs, founded basically on the CPA law. But unlike other years, this year was a bit different. This is the scene in the House of Delegates, and that's when the clock strikes midnight and all the bills go off. That's the voting wall. And usually we're sitting up in the gallery right above that. Mary Beth Halpern, our head of legislative and technical services, along with me. And then her and I would walk out on the street after midnight. Confetti would fall down. The legislators would celebrate their intense 90-day session. And then we would do a recap out in front of the State House at midnight. So today I'm coming to you via virtual technology. I'm in front of the Maryland State House. That's where all the CPAs line up on those steps. Hopefully next year, 2022, we'll be back. But the main thing about this year that was different is it actually started last year. So last year we were in the midst of a major battle on sales tax on services, which we successfully defeated. And I'll never forget it. It was March the 15th, corporate tax deadline of all things. And they actually shut the State House down. They declared Sine Die, and all the legislators left. And at that point, we were 19 days early, and it was the first time since the Civil War that ever happened. And of course, we would move into this new year in a very virtual way, social distancing, legislators dealing with COVID, just intense, and you could not get down there and go into the State House to watch any of the proceedings. You had very limited access to legislators. Anyhow, at that point, states were beginning to shut down, and we had already reached out to Governor Hogan saying that we're going to need essential worker status, which is under the Department of Homeland Security, and the governor promptly granted that on a Saturday before he issued the executive order to shelter in place for all businesses in the state of Maryland. Anyhow, that would finish our last year, and then we said, how are we going to do this new year? And so instead of lining up on the State House, we lined up on Zoom and created this virtual CPA Day. 600 members attended that. We had both presiding officers, Senate President Bill Ferguson from Baltimore City, and Speaker of the House Adrian Jones from Baltimore County. We had Senate Budget and Tax Leader Guy Guzzoni, Senate Finance Committee, Vice Chair Brian Feldman, and it was an amazing event to get everyone ready for this legislative session. We're hoping that next year we'll be back in person, but I do want to recognize our three legislators who are in the State House: Senator Brian Feldman, Senator Arthur Ellis, and Delegate William Wyville. We call that the CPA caucus, if you will. It's great to have CPAs in the inner circle, and they've been huge. So hopefully if you're in their district, we hope that you will continue to support them. But here's our legislative agenda. We're pretty happy. We had a good year. And obviously the one that we didn't get done was to proactively have an employer liability prevention bill. We think it's probably not needed between the Maryland reopening status the governor did. We have a reopening booklet that we've sent to all members. If you follow those rules as an employer, when you reopen, you should be exempt from most liability. Virginia took a really onerous part of that, and that's what we were watching, and it didn't happen. Sales tax on professional services did not come in, success. Onerous data privacy from the prior year, it did not come in this year. We're not against data privacy. We just want to make sure that it allows CPAs to do the work we do with the information that we have to collect from taxpayers, et cetera. We did support a technical correction to Senate Bill 523 for pass-through entity. tax legislation clarification. That was all over our listservs at the end of last year, and so that did get clarified. We also opposed anti-licensing legislation. This is a growing trend. About 40 states are dealing with this kind of legislation. We were ready for it, but it did not come in. Then 3 new things flew in. Senate Bill 787, extremely controversial. This came in, or this was needed as a result of the governor's veto of the digital products and advertising tax legislation that were overridden the first week of session. So those bills, once they're overridden, they become automatic. And so within like 2 weeks, they become effective. Comptroller Francho wrote up implementation pieces, and we mobilized to ask for one, more time to implement, which was granted, and to get clarification. Like they added broad interpretation, put online CPE for all nonprofits as a taxable item. We got that reversed. There are still some other details that we're going to be hammering out over the summer, but I would say we were extremely successful thanks to our tax committee and our led by Karen Cirillo, by the way. She just did an amazing job for us and with us, and I have to make sure we shout that out. Along with a bunch of other of our tax committee members who were behind the scenes analyzing, all kinds of tax legislation that was in there. We obviously we opposed HB 804, the whistleblower reward program oriented towards tax, and we had to make sure it didn't have False Claims Act in it, which is extremely onerous and showing up in other states. It means you as a tax preparer could get thrown into liability if the taxpayer did something illegal and somebody blew the whistle on them. You could end up getting caught up in that suit and liability. And then HB 495, we asked for an amendment to decouple from the CARES Act so that PPP loan forgiveness would be also forgiven from a Maryland tax perspective. This is an automatic thing that happens if we do nothing. So that's basically the highlights for a extremely successful year. And you have to, in this world, we have to point back to what has gone on. This has been $7 trillion, and you as CPAs have been on the front lines of what we call the financial crisis. And the relief packages, which started all the way back in April, have just continued throughout this year and are actually still continuing. So something like $7 trillion. And it's worth noting, we actually had to cross administrations and Congresses. So we moved from the 116th to the 117th Congress right at January, where more and more stuff, and now we're looking at even another massive tax thing. Well, we're on that. We're on it. We work with Congress. We mobilize grassroots around those things as well. And for all of you out there who I know are tired from, I would call this just the third marathon we're running here. Hang tough in there, CPAs. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe and stay strong. Tom Hood reporting from Annapolis virtually on Sine Die 2021.